Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're inviting you to truly open your mind and consider a reality where, well, maybe everything you thought you knew about history, technology, even truth itself, it might just be a carefully constructed illusion. Imagine if historical villains were, in fact, misunderstood heroes.
Right.
If ancient civilizations possessed advanced technologies that utterly defy our modern understanding.
Technologies we can barely conceive of.
Exactly. And what if even our most cutting-edge tools, like AI, are already grappling with their own sort of inherent biases?
It's definitely more than just a thought experiment. It's a profoundly challenging, sometimes unsettling premise, isn't it?
It really is.
And our sources for this deep dive, they're a collection of truly unconventional insights. They really dare to question these dominant narratives.
So we're digging into perspectives most people probably haven't encountered.
Pretty much. We're going to be unearthing some surprising facts, tracing these intricate connections that span continents and millennia, and hopefully sparking some profound aha moments for you, moments that might just compel you to rethink your whole understanding of the past.
That's precisely the goal. Our mission today is to cut through the noise, right? To extract the most important nuggets of knowledge from these rich, often overlooked perspectives. We're here to give you a shortcut, basically, to being well-informed about ideas that are frequently dismissed or maybe even hidden.
And do it through an engaging conversation, like you're right here with us, figuring this stuff out.
Exactly. So let's unpack this. We're starting with a revelation from ancient Sri Lanka that honestly might just change how you think about numbers themselves. Okay, let's jump straight into unveiling ancient systems, and specifically this truly mind-bending numerical revelation.
Right.
We're talking about the alleged discovery of an ancient Sri Lankan numerical system. And what's so striking about it is how fundamentally different it is from, well, anything we use today.
Yeah, one striking aspect is that it's described as operating on a base 8 system.
Base 8, okay.
Yeah.
Not our base 10.
Right, which immediately sets it apart. But what's even more intriguing, maybe revolutionary, is that it features unique geometric symbols for every single quantity.
Every single one, up to...
Conceptually, all the way up to infinity. And, maybe most astonishingly, it reportedly has no symbol for zero.
No zero.
No zero.
How does that even work? Zero is so fundamental for us.
Exactly. This absence fundamentally challenges our modern understanding of how numbers work. It's foundational to our whole mathematical framework.
No zero. That's almost unimaginable, considering how integral it is to, positional notation and everything. So what do these unique geometric symbols actually look like? Can you give us some examples so we can, visualize this?
Absolutely. And it starts quite simply, which helps. Gives you a clear visual progression. For the quantity 1, it's represented by just a single dot, like this.
Okay, simple enough. A dot for 1.
2 is depicted as a straightforward vertical line.
All right.
Then 3 creatively combines these, becomes a vertical line with a dot on its right side.
Ah, I see. Building on the previous ones.
Exactly. Moving to 4, we see a new, distinct geometric shape introduced. An open-base triangle pointing upwards.
A triangle for 4. Okay.
And 5 builds directly on that. It takes the open triangle and simply adds a dot to its right side.
So it's like 4 plus the dot for 1.
You can see the logic forming, can't you? It's like a visual language, not just abstract digits.
Yeah, it's not just stacking counters, it's evolving visually, almost like a growing pattern. That's fascinating. So how does this geometric progression continue for larger numbers, especially as we approach and pass 8, which you said is the base?
Right, the base 8 aspect. Well, the geometric logic becomes even more sophisticated. For 7, it's described as building upon previous symbols again. It looks something like a caret combined with a line and a dot. It shows how these more complex forms are constructed from simpler ones.
Okay, so 7 is quite intricate already. What about 8, the base number itself?
8 is represented by a really foundational symbol, a solid triangle.
A solid triangle. Okay, that feels significant for base 8.
Exactly. This solid triangle serves as the anchor, the core unit of the base 8 system. It's a clear visual representation of the base itself.
And it gets even more complex and, frankly, more fascinating from there, right? Like for powers of the base or when you combine different quantities?
Oh, absolutely. Take 16. It's represented by another distinct geometric form, a rectangle.
A rectangle for 16, so like 2 8s.
It suggests that, yeah. A clear doubling of the base 8 triangle, perhaps visualizing 8 plus 8 or 8 by 2. Then for 24, we see a really straightforward combination, a rectangle and a triangle side by side.
16 plus 8.
Explicitly stated as 16 plus 8 in the source, yeah. Creating this new compound symbol. For 32, it's 2 rectangles side by side.
16 times 2.
Exactly. Vividly indicating that multiplication. And this is where the visual ingenuity really starts to shine.
2 rectangles side by side for 32. That makes immediate visual sense as doubling 16. What about something like 48 or 64, which is 8 by 8?
Good question. For 48, it's represented by a grid, or like a square divided into 4 parts.
Okay, how does that relate?
Well, you could conceptualize that as 16 multiplied by 3, almost like 3 of those rectangle symbols compressed or integrated into a single larger unit,
I see, like 16 plus 16 plus 16.
potentially. And for 64, which is 8 by 8, it's described as U by 4 in a cube shape, or sometimes just as that square divided into 4 parts again, like the 48 symbol, but perhaps representing 8 by 8 in context. It powerfully reinforces the geometric scaling. It literally shows a progression, maybe hinting at 3 dimensions or an 8 by 8 matrix visually.
Wow. And higher still, like 128.
Yeah, for 128, the symbol is quite intricate. A triangle placed on top of a rectangle, and then the whole thing is encircled, on top of circled.
Triangle on rectangle, circled. 8 times 16.
That's exactly how it's described, signifying 8 multiplied by 16.
That's an astonishing amount of intricate visual encoding. So what does this all mean for how this system fundamentally operates? You said it's different from our positional system.
It's a profound distinction, and maybe the most radical departure from our modern math. This alleged ancient Sri Lankan system is fundamentally non-positional.
Meaning the place value doesn't matter.
Exactly. Every single quantity is said to have its own unique, distinct symbol. They don't reuse a small set of digits like 0 through 9 in different positions.
Okay.
The implication, and this is where it gets really interesting, is that arithmetic operations, adding, subtracting, might not be performed through abstract methods like column addition or multiplication tables as we know them.
So how would they do math?
Instead, they might be performed through geometric transformations.
Geometric transformations. Can you give us a more elaborate example of how that might work? Because that's truly a leap.
Certainly, imagine you want to add 8 plus 8. You take 2 triangle symbols, O plus S, each representing 8. When you combine them, their geometric forms might literally transform or merge into a rectangle symbol,
Right.
instantly signifying 16.
So triangle plus triangle equals rectangle visually.
That's the concept. Now imagine subtraction. Perhaps you remove a smaller geometric component from a larger one. Maybe you take the dot away from the symbol for 5 and it visually transforms back to the symbol for 4.
Taking away the dot, literally subtracting one.
Right. And for division, it might be a process of disassembling a larger shape into its constituent fundamental shapes, visually demonstrating how many times one geometric unit fits into another.
Like a visual puzzle.
Exactly. It suggests this direct, intuitive relationship between quantity and form, like a visual algebra, where the answer literally emerges from the combined or transformed shape. It's an almost artistic form of math, deeply rooted in spatial reasoning.
That's truly remarkable. So instead of abstract numbers on a page, you're literally manipulating shapes and seeing the answer emerge. And the claim is that this system could go up to 100,000 billions or whatsoever. Huge numbers.
Yes, implying quantities vastly larger than we typically consider.
What are the theoretical implications of a system with such an enormous range and, crucially, no zero?
Well, the implications are profound, stretching into philosophy, really. A numerical system capable of representing quantities into the hundreds of trillions and beyond, and almost infinite range, and doing so without a concept of zero. It suggests a completely different philosophical approach to mathematics, and maybe even to existence itself.
How so?
In many ancient traditions, the universe isn't seen as starting from nothing or having a fixed boundary. It's inherently infinite, continuous.
Okay.
So a numerical system without a symbol for zero could reflect this worldview, where even the smallest quantity is something, and true nothingness is perhaps inconceivable or just irrelevant to measurement.
So it aligns with a worldview of inherent fullness, not emptiness.
Possibly. For instance, Buddha spoke of something called Sankhya Kalpalaksha, which refers to a truly unfathomable measure of time. Imagine a 1 followed by 142 zeros.
Wow.
This isn't just for counting sheep, right? It implies a system capable of conceptualizing and working with vast, almost infinite quantities, maybe for understanding cosmic cycles rather than just day-to-day transactions.
Wow. Imagine a world where numbers aren't just abstract digits, but are these inherent geometric patterns, like a visual language. How does this visually rich numerical system challenge your conventional understanding of mathematics? It certainly makes me think about how much our perception is shaped by our own decimal system.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What kind of scientific or philosophical insights could emerge from thinking about math in this fundamentally different, visual, non-zero way?
Okay, from the intricacies of ancient numbers, let's pivot to something equally profound and connected to the land itself, this theory of resonance engineering.
Right. Particularly as applied to stupas and dams in ancient Sri Lanka.
And this comes from a retired school principal there. It suggests a level of scientific understanding that it really defies conventional history.
Yeah, the core premise here is key, that ancient stupas, those dome-shaped structures and the massive dams, the tanks, they weren't just colossal feats of civil engineering.
Not just big piles of bricks and earth.
No. They were designed with a precise, intricate understanding of resonance. The theory posits that the stupas were built to precisely balance the frequency of the surrounding tank walls of their huge irrigation systems.
Balance their frequency, like tuning forks.
Something like that. And this wasn't just for aesthetics or spiritual reasons, although those were undoubtedly part of it. It was for the mutual sustainability and long-term stability of these vital water management structures.
So it's not just that they built impressive stuff. They were essentially creating giant harmonious energy circuits that interacted with the natural world. Is that the idea?
Oh, yeah, the core idea, yeah.
What's the specific mechanism supposed to be? How does this harmonic stabilizer work?
Well, the belief is that this precise balance, achieved through specific construction techniques, materials, maybe even the geometry we just talked about, it creates this harmonic stabilizer.
Okay.
And this stabilizer actively works with the Earth's natural vibrations and subtle energy flows. Imagine these structures, stupa and tank together, acting like giant tuning forks, resonating with the land itself.
So they weren't just static objects.
Exactly. They were dynamic systems, interacting with their environment on a subtle, energetic level. The implication is staggering, really. It suggests ancient Sri Lankans possessed an advanced understanding not just of hydrodynamics, how water moves,
Right, the engineering part we recognize.
but also geophysics, understanding the Earth's energetic ley lines, maybe even what we might call bioenergetics today, how subtle energies influence living systems and materials. They built with an awareness of the planet as a living system.
And what happens if that delicate balance is disrupted? Is there, like, real-world evidence for this theory beyond texts?
Well, according to the principal's empirical observations, what he saw on the ground, if this delicate resonance balance is disrupted, the tank walls become highly susceptible to damage and degradation over time. They eventually fail.
They crack and break down.
Exactly. He points to numerous broken tank walls in these vast dried-up environments in the northern and north-central parts of Sri Lanka. These are regions where ancient tank ruins are everywhere.
Places that used to be fertile?
Precisely. These areas were once renowned as the granary of South Asia because of their immense agricultural productivity, supported by these tanks. Now, they're often barren and parched. It's a really stark visual contrast to the lush, fertile regions where these systems seem to remain intact.
That's a powerful observation. A direct correlation between the state of the ancient structures and the vitality of the land. And is there a specific historical event that the principle links this widespread disruption to?
Yes, the damage is directly hypothesized to be a consequence of the Soli invasion.
Soli, you mean the Chola invasion?
Yes, the Chola invasions from South India around the 10th, 11th century CE. The deliberate destruction of stupas and temples during these invasions, it's argued, literally disrupted this ancient energetic balance.
Like smashing a carefully tuned instrument?
Exactly. The harmony is broken. This, in turn, led to the gradual failure of the immense tank systems, slowly turning once fertile lands into deserts over centuries. Meanwhile, parts of the island where these sacred systems are still intact, where stupas, tanks, and temples remain relatively undisturbed, they seem to continue to sustain their energy balance. And those areas are still notably fertile and stable today.
That's a truly profound connection. It suggests this intricate integration of spiritual structures, environmental infrastructure, the land's energy. It forces us to reconsider the very definition of engineering.
It really does.
Suggesting a truly holistic approach, integrating natural and spiritual elements. What if ancient engineers designed structures to work with the natural world rather than just imposing upon it? It's mind-boggling.
Hmm.
And this idea that restoring these structures could help revive the balance today, is that literally about rebuilding them? Or is it more about reviving the intention and energy behind them?
That's a great question. It's likely both. Rebuilding the physical structures, especially if you could do it with an understanding of their original resonant design, could certainly begin to reestablish those harmonic frequencies. But the theory also strongly implies that the intention and the spiritual energy imbued in their creation, that deep understanding that humans are part of a larger interconnected system, were crucial.
So just building a modern dam isn't the same.
Right. It suggests that merely building a dam for water storage misses the deeper point. It misses designing a structure that coexists and cooperates with Earth's natural energies. It fundamentally challenges our modern approach, which often prioritizes, brute force engineering and immediate utility over subtle harmony.
Makes you wonder what we're missing.
Definitely. Are we missing something fundamental about how to truly thrive sustainably?
Okay, moving from these lost systems and technologies, let's dive into redefining Ravana. And we're starting by challenging perhaps one of the most ingrained narratives in South Asian history, Ravana, the demon king.
Right, the ultimate villain figure for many.
But one striking aspect of our sources is how they directly challenge that widely accepted, frankly simplistic hero versus villain dichotomy of the Ramayana.
Absolutely. Traditionally, Ravana is portrayed as purely evil, one-dimensional, the embodiment of wickedness.
The bad guy, full stop.
Pretty much. However, a closer look at the source material, even Valmiki's Ramayana itself, the original text, reveals a far more nuanced and complex picture. This isn't about excusing actions necessarily, but understanding motivations.
So even the central act of his villainy, the abduction of Sita, gets reframed, not just unprovoked malice.
Exactly. The abduction of Sita is presented not as this random act of aggression born of pure evil, but as a direct response.
A response to what?
A response to the brutal mutilation of his sister, Surpanaka. This horrific act, her nose and ears being cut off, occurred on land that was considered under Lanka's sovereignty.
So it was seen as an attack on his family and kingdom.
Precisely. Which provides Ravana with a deeply personal and, from his perspective, retaliatory motivation. Not just random villainy. He saw it as an egregious violation, justifying his subsequent actions in his own eyes. It adds this layer of tragic consequence and complex motivation to a character often reduced to just a caricature.
And Ravana himself is portrayed with far more depth than just a monstrous figure, right? He's described as multifaceted.
Indeed. Consistently, across various sources, Ravana is depicted as a highly learned scholar, a master of the Vedas and other ancient texts.
A scholar, okay.
A powerful and capable king who ruled a prosperous kingdom, a great devotee of Lord Shiva.
Devotee of Shiva, interesting.
And a formidable warrior, obviously. His character possesses layers far beyond mere villainy. He's driven by complex desires, perhaps even a twisted form of love or obsession for Sita, yes, but also a fierce sense of family honor and territorial sovereignty.
And his kingdom, Lanka.
It's consistently described as prosperous, well-organized, technologically advanced even. This implies he was an exceptionally effective ruler, at least internally. His violence, while undeniable, seems primarily directed outwards, towards opponents in war, rather than, say, wanton cruelty or oppressive tyranny over his own people.
Okay, this really sounds like we need to seriously critique Rama's actions then, which are often held up as the epitome of righteousness.
That's exactly where the sources go.
What do they, and maybe even the Ramayana itself, imply about Rama's character?
Well, the source material directly questions Rama's righteousness. It highlights his morally ambiguous, ethically questionable, and even unrighteous and cowardly actions.
Cowardly, like what?
For instance, the killing of Vali, the Vanara king. It's particularly problematic. Rama shoots him from behind, hidden, while Vali is engaged in a fair fight with his brother Sugriva. The source calls it a coward's guise.
Shooting someone in the back isn't exactly heroic.
Not typically, no. Then there's Jatayu, the noble bird demon who tried to protect Sita. He was left dying a slow, agonizing death by Rama and Lakshmana.
Okay.
Shambhuka, a Shudra ascetic, was slain by Rama simply for practicing austerity, which violated caste rules at the time, an act of clear caste-based discrimination presented in the text.
Wow.
And even the fire ordeal, the Agni Pariksha, for Sita upon her return, where she has to prove her purity by walking through fire. That scene is deeply problematic and unjust, forcing a victim to prove her innocence like that.
Yeah, that doesn't sit right.
There's a powerful song lyric from our sources that really encapsulates this critique. Tell me, Ram, who am I? A demon or a king who walks with the sky? I spared your armies, I showed restraint, while you wore virtue as a mask to taint. Speak, Ram, if you dare, what justice lives in the lives you tear.
Wow, that's incredibly direct. It pulls no punches.
It's a profound accusation, isn't it? Forcing us to confront the hypocrisy often ignored in the standard simplified narratives.
So what's the analysis here? Is Valmiki's Ramayana itself subtly challenging its own hero-villain narrative? Maybe hinting at these complexities for a deeper reading?
Absolutely, that's one of the most insightful points. That a critical reading of Valmiki's Ramayana itself can indeed dismantle the traditional demonization of Ravana and force a re-examination of Rama's righteousness.
So the complexity is baked in.
It suggests a more complex narrative was woven into the epic from the start. Perhaps, as the source suggests, even a subtle critique by the original author, Valmiki, who might have intended this deeper meaning to be understood later, when humanity was ready to question established narratives. And the fact that, as we discussed earlier, AI responses were repeatedly flagged when exploring Rama's morally ambiguous actions, even when factual and sourced from the epic. It just shows how deeply ingrained and protected this dominant narrative is.
Even in algorithms.
Right. It's almost as if the system itself resists information that deviates from its pre-programmed understanding of hero and villain.
How do these alternative interpretations challenge centuries of ingrained belief?
Yeah.
It invites us to look beyond these simplistic portrayals in literature and history. It certainly makes me want to reread the Ramayana with a completely different lens, searching for these subtle clues.
It absolutely does. It implies that true understanding might lie beyond rigid labels, that complexity paradox, the integration of seemingly opposing forces. These are essential to grasping the full scope of reality and ancient wisdom.
It's not black and white.
Definitely not. It challenges you, the listener, to look beyond surface-level interpretations and consider the deeper, maybe even esoteric meanings woven into these ancient traditions. It invites a much more critical and nuanced engagement with historical and mythological texts.
We've established a more complex view of Ravana as a king and warrior. Now let's delve even deeper into his character, exploring his profound spiritual side and cosmic significance. This is where the story gets really interesting, revealing layers almost completely ignored by mainstream narratives.
It really does. And one of the most compelling pieces of evidence for Ravana's deep spiritual nature is the unwavering tradition that attributes the authorship of the revered Shiv Tandav Stotram to Ravana himself.
The Shiv Tandav Stotram, Shiva's Dance of Fury hymn. That specific one.
That specific one. It's not just a casual prayer. It's a monumental Sanskrit hymn of immense complexity and beauty. It's one of the most powerful and well-known hymns dedicated to Lord Shiva.
That's incredible. Composing something like that would require extraordinary linguistic and philosophical mastery. So this isn't just a simple devotional poem.
Not at all. Composing such a complex and beautiful hymn requires mastery not only of the Sanskrit language and poetic meter,
It was hard enough.
right, but also a deep internal understanding of Shaiva philosophy, cosmology, and intense personal devotion to Shiva. This immediately elevates Ravana far beyond the image of just a brutish, one-dimensional demon.
It completely contradicts that image.
It highlights his intellectual prowess, his artistic capabilities, and his intense spiritual dedication. It creates this fascinating paradox, doesn't it? A powerful king and warrior, often reviled, who's also a deeply spiritual, insightful individual capable of such profound expression. It forces us to reconcile these two seemingly contradictory aspects of his character.
And it doesn't stop there. He's also depicted in a Mahayana Buddhist scripture, the Lankavatara Sutra, in a surprising and utterly transformative role.
This is truly fascinating, and maybe even more surprising for many. In the Mahayana Buddhist scripture, Lankavatara Sutra, Ravana, king of Lanka, is depicted not as an enemy or an antagonist.
Not the villain.
No, but as a highly perceptive disciple of Kassapa Buddha.
Kassapa Buddha, one of the previous Buddhas before Gautama.
Exactly, one of the ancient Buddhas. And Ravana engages in profound philosophical dialogues with this Buddha. He asks deep, penetrating questions about the nature of reality, consciousness, the illusion of self, the path to liberation.
Deep philosophical stuff.
Absolutely. This portrayal is a stark, almost unbelievable contrast to his demonized image in the Ramayana, and it powerfully suggests he possesses Buddha nature and the potential for enlightenment. The Lankavatara Sutra represents a completely different narrative tradition where Ravana is a significant, even central figure in the transmission of Dharma, of cosmic truth.
A disciple of a Buddha engaging in deep philosophical debates. That radically redefines his spiritual standing and intellectual depth. And then there's this mantra you mentioned, Mahavishnu Nahat Maharavana, which takes it to an entirely different cosmic level, suggesting he's more than just a king or a scholar.
This powerful mantra, from an evoking video shared in our sources, suggests that Vishnu, the preserver deity in Hinduism, and Ravana are two sides of the same force.
Whoa! Vishnu and Ravana, the same force.
That's the implication. It aligns with certain hidden traditions that view Ravana not as a villain, but as a divine being. Potentially a solar or Vishnu-like deity in his own right, maybe even an avatar of Vishnu or one of his divine attendants playing a crucial, albeit seemingly adversarial role in a grand cosmic drama.
Like a necessary counterpoint.
Perhaps. The source describes this invocation as a spiritual artifact, a mantra lost to history, suggesting it could be a key to unlocking deeper truths about Ravana, Vishnu, and Sri Lanka's real place in ancient history. It hints at a cosmic purpose behind his existence, far beyond the simple Ramayana story.
So what does it mean when a character we've always labeled as a villain is also credited with profound spiritual wisdom, seen as a disciple of a Buddha, or even depicted as two sides of the same cosmic force as Vishnu? Does this alter our understanding of good and evil?
It has to, doesn't it?
It certainly forces us to reconsider the simplistic narratives we've inherited.
It absolutely does. It implies that true understanding might lie beyond rigid labels. That complexity, paradox, integrating seemingly opposing forces, these are essential to grasping the full scope of reality and ancient wisdom.
So maybe evil isn't always just evil.
It challenges you to look beyond those surface interpretations. Consider the deeper, esoteric meanings woven into these ancient traditions. It suggests that what we perceive as evil might sometimes be a necessary catalyst for spiritual growth, or maybe a misunderstood aspect of a larger divine plan. It fundamentally shifts our perception of what a villain can be and encourages a much more nuanced, multi-layered approach to interpreting ancient texts and characters.
And speaking of cosmic forces and deep historical connections, Ravana's story potentially extends far beyond Lanka. It links him to Egyptian deities, even the legendary lost continent of Atlantis. This is where our deep dive truly expands its scope, connecting dots across continents and millennia.
Yeah, this is where it gets really expansive. One of the most compelling and, let's be honest, audacious claims here is this bold, interconnected narrative that emerges from the sources.
Okay, lay it on us.
It proposes that Ravana is directly connected to the Egyptian deity Ra.
Ra, the sun god.
Yes, and Thoth, the ancient Egyptian god of wisdom and writing, and the legendary lost continent of Atlantis, which interestingly is referred to in these sources as Atalanka.
Atalanka, like Atlantis Lanka.
Exactly, with Sri Lanka being potentially a surviving mountain peak of that vast ancient landmass.
Okay, Atalanka. And the familiar flood myth fits into this, but maybe not in the way we usually think about it.
Precisely. The common global flood myth gets reinterpreted in these sources, instead of a sudden cataclysmic deluge.
Like Noah's Ark?
Right. It describes a long, gradual sea level rise, a period of 7 years of rain.
7 years of rain. Wow.
During this prolonged period, the Alayo, identified as the ancient Sri Lankans, survived and adapted on mountain peaks, turning what were once vast land masses into the islands we know today. This implies a massive submerged continent, Atalanka, that might have stretched from Madagascar all the way to Australia.
A true global civilization.
That slowly succumbed to rising waters.
Yeah.
The lyrics of a song in the sources powerfully state, "Hey Leo, rise above the sea in every ways and wind," reinforcing this idea of incredible resilience and adaptability in the face of epical change.
And Sigiriya, the famous lion's rock in Sri Lanka, is presented as a crucial central link to this ancient knowledge and these grand claims. How does Sigiriya fit into this expansive narrative?
Sigiriya is described as perfectly matching the description of the halls of Amenti in the esoteric emerald tablets of Thoth.
The Emerald Tablet. Okay, that's deep esoteric territory.
It is. Those tablets speak of hidden chambers. Deep in the earth's heart lie the halls of Amenti, far beneath the islands and sunken lost lands, guarded by wisdom, sealed with a lion, and closed with a rock.
Sealed with a lion, closed with a rock. Sigiriya.
Exactly. Sigiriya, famously known as the Lion's Rock, is this massive, seemingly impenetrable rock fortress. It has that famous lion's paw entrance and persistent stories of hidden chambers and tunnels beneath it that are still largely unexplored.
So Sigiriya could be more than just a fortress.
This suggests it might be much more, possibly a literal gateway to the lost knowledge and records of Sri Lanka, a repository of ancient wisdom sealed away.
And Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom and writing, is also directly connected to Ravana in this narrative. This weaves together even more seemingly disparate mythologies.
Yes, Thoth is depicted as Ravana's scribe, metaphorically referred to as Dada to Thoth, the scribe with a pen.
Data, like a nickname or title?
Seems like it. Implying that Thoth was diligently recording wisdom and knowledge for Atlantis, perhaps under Ravana's guidance or as part of his administration. What's even more compelling is that the Emerald Tablets mention Thoth leaving his body in the halls of Amenti.
Okay.
And this parallels a well-known myth in Sri Lanka that Ravana himself is not dead, but merely unconscious and waiting for his return.
Whoa, so Ravana's sleep is like Thoth leaving his body.
It links Ravana's potential immortality and eventual reemergence directly to Thoth's esoteric knowledge and departure. It suggests a shared destiny, maybe even a shared identity, across these ancient traditions.
This is truly a global tapestry you're weaving here, suggesting a deep, ancient interconnectedness. Does this connection imply a shared lineage or even direct relationship between ancient Sri Lankans and, say, ancient Egyptians?
Well, the song lyrics we mentioned explicitly claim this connection. Suryavansha blood, yeah, a lineage divine from the heights of Sigiriya to Egypt's shrine.
Suryavansha, the solar dynasty. Yes, masks on their faces, gods of the Nile, but it's Ravana's family rocking that style.
Wow, okay. That's bold.
It explicitly links Ravana's lineage to solar worship central in ancient Egypt and directly to ancient Egyptian royalty. It strongly suggests a deep, shared, global ancient heritage. It posits that the gods of the Nile and the ruling families of ancient Egypt were, in essence, descendants or extensions of Ravana's family.
And the source even suggests Ravana is Ra.
Yes, the source goes that far, positing Ravana is Ra, implying they are one and the same cosmic entity manifesting in different cultures and eras.
And it seems this grand historical narrative is not something conventional archaeology readily embraces. There's even a critique of C.H.P. Bell, a key figure in Sri Lankan archaeology, suggesting deliberate suppression.
Indeed. C.H.P. Bell, a crucial British archaeologist working in Sri Lanka in the late 19th, early 20th century, he's mentioned as closing the way to the rock.
Closing the way? What does that mean?
It implies a deliberate act of concealing or sealing off access to deeper truths within Sigiriya's mysteries. Not just a lack of exploration, but actively preventing it.
Why would he do that?
Well, the sources suggest locals were allegedly afraid to go to Sigiriya, even in Bell's time. They reported seeing lights and other mysterious phenomena, suggesting a powerful or mysterious energy protecting the site.
Okay.
The source even mentions an old guy who helped Bell, supposedly went blind after aiding him, reinforcing this idea of a spiritual protection or maybe a consequence for disturbing these ancient sites. This whole narrative suggests that the real story of Ravana is much bigger than just the Ramayana. It spans ancient civilizations. And it fundamentally challenges you to look beyond conventional interpretations and ask, what secrets are deliberately being kept from us?
What if the legends of Atlantis, Egyptian gods, and Sri Lankan kings are all threads of a single grand historical tapestry, just waiting for us to piece them together? It certainly gives a whole new meaning to hidden history and the idea that some truths are actively being kept from us. As we continue to peel back these layers of history and mythology, we inevitably stumble upon the tantalizing possibility of lost technologies. Which brings us to our next segment. Let's start with a classic in the ancient mysteries genre, Vimanas, ancient flying machines.
Right, and this is one of the most astounding claims from our sources, that ancient Sri Lankans, particularly during Ravana's era, possessed incredibly advanced flying machines, far beyond anything conventionally understood about ancient technology.
And these weren't just like myths or metaphors.
According to the sources, no. They were actively used, transforming their world.
So what kinds of Vimanas are we talking about? What were their capabilities? Were they simple gliders or something far more sophisticated?
The sources detail several types, each apparently with specific functions. There was the legendary Pushpaka Vimana, often described as a luxurious floral chariot capable of extensive travel.
The one Ravana used in the Ramayana.
That's the one. Then, the Sahasrathya, described as a more formidable war machine, famously piloted by Indrajit, Ravana's son.
A warplane, basically.
Seems like it. And another sophisticated flying vehicle known as the Dandamanara. These machines were reportedly used not just for local travel, but for intercontinental import-export,
Wow.
and even for warfare, with astonishing claims that they were capable of reaching other worlds.
Other worlds, like planets or other dimensions.
The sources are a bit ambiguous, but it implies incredible range and perhaps even space travel or interdimensional capabilities.
Reaching other worlds. That implies an incredible mastery of aerospace engineering or something beyond it. What about their power source and weaponry? This is where ancient tech often converges with sci-fi.
Indeed, the fuel source is particularly intriguing and quite unlike anything we use today, primarily mercury and solar power.
Mercury. How would that work?
Well, this isn't just a flight of fancy in the texts. It implies perhaps a profound knowledge of liquid metal propulsion, maybe leveraging principles of energy amplification through resonance, like we discussed with the stupas, or even a form of cold fusion that utilizes mercury as a medium. Concepts modern scientists are only just beginning to explore.
And solar power? Okay, that's more familiar. Weaponry.
For weaponry, the Vimanas allegedly carried radioactive weapons and poison bombs.
Radioactive weapons. Ancient nukes.
It hints at something like that, or at least advanced chemical and potentially radiological capabilities. Some texts even mention cobra venom, mixed with natural cobra venom for these bombs. Far more destructive and advanced ancient warfare than typically imagined.
And the descriptions get technical.
Surprisingly so, mentioning engine components like liquid superheaters, coil wire for accelerated liquid gases, and magnetic field control systems for controlling fluid at an astonishing 60,000 RPM. It all hints at complex, almost futuristic engineering.
Okay, so if this incredibly advanced technology existed, where's the knowledge now? Is it hidden, suppressed, simply lost to time?
The sources claim a strong and deliberate suppression of this knowledge.
Deliberate suppression. By whom?
Well, they refer to the Vaimanika Shastra, an ancient text allegedly detailing 32 things about aeronautical engineering fundamentals, construction, propulsion, everything.
Okay.
There's even a bold, controversial claim that German engineers in World War II reportedly studied and translated these ancient texts to produce some designs for their early airplanes, though obviously that's not widely accepted history.
Right.
More significantly, the source contends that governments plurals are actively hiding ancient Sri Lankan books containing these technologies, preventing their release to the public. There's even a direct challenge issued in the material. Release those books, and let's see what kind of knowledge that you took from us and are hiding.
That's a powerful statement, suggesting a deliberate cover-up of world-changing information. Imagine ancient skies filled with flying machines powered by mercury and solar energy. What if the technologies we marvel at today are merely rediscoveries, or even inferior versions of lost ancient wisdom?
It really raises the question, doesn't it? What are the ethical implications if such advanced knowledge is being hidden from humanity?
Yeah.
If technologies for limitless clean energy or advanced healing methods hinted at in these texts, if they're deliberately suppressed, it's not just a lost opportunity. It fundamentally perpetuates a system where vital resources are controlled by a few.
Maintaining the status quo.
Exactly. It suggests a profound level of societal manipulation, denying humanity access to tools that could end suffering, revolutionize our energy future, transform our world, all maybe for the benefit of maintaining existing power structures. It fundamentally shifts our perception of what ancient societies were capable of. And it forces us to ask, who benefits from this knowledge remaining hidden?
And it seems the advanced understanding wasn't limited to flying machines. It extended to entire energy systems, architectural wonders, tapping directly into natural forces.
Absolutely. The source argues that ancient Sri Lankans had a sophisticated understanding of natural energy generation and transmission, fundamentally different from our modern grid-based systems. The core idea is simple, yet revolutionary. Nature doesn't need grids.
Okay.
The Earth itself naturally generates, stores, and transmits energy through the atmosphere, the ground, water systems. Ancient civilizations like Ravana's Lanka supposedly understood this intrinsic energy flow, and they developed technologies that didn't rely on massive centralized grid systems, wires, or power plants as we know them.
So our current global electricity system is seen as a huge distraction, implying a deliberate design flaw.
Yes, it's explicitly characterized that way, as a circuit designed to maintain control.
Control how?
Implying deliberate ignorance baked into its design, and maybe even the curriculum taught to modern engineers. The source asks pointedly, what knowledge are they hiding that could dismantle this system entirely? It suggests engineers today might be given half the truth in their training, enough to operate the existing system, but not enough to challenge its fundamental inefficiencies or the control it represents.
And who benefits from that?
Well, arguably, those who control resource industries and existing power structures. It keeps humanity dependent on a centralized extractive model.
That's a radical critique of modern infrastructure.
Yeah.
What specific examples of this advanced infrastructure and energy manipulation do our sources provide beyond the stupid tank resonance?
One of the most compelling descriptions relates to extensive hidden networks. Sri Lanka is said to have this vast network of underground routes or tunnels,
Tunnels connecting where?
connecting distant points across the island. For instance, routes mentioned are from Rakane to Nuvarelia and from Hulangamue to Arela Wirakani to Sigira.
Wow, extensive.
Some of these tunnels are reportedly found under the city, under 20 feet of dirt. This suggests ancient mud flood events, maybe from those prolonged rains we talked about, that submerged lower lands and buried these structures, contributing to their disappearance from conventional history.
And how did they build these tunnels and other massive structures, like that pool on top of Sigiriya Rock? There's a mention of rock melting and hardening technology.
Exactly. This advanced method was allegedly used to scoop out the perfectly circular massive pool on top of Sigiriya Rock, which would be an immense feat of engineering even today, carving into solid rock like that.
Yeah, how did they do that?
This tech was also supposedly used to seal treasures within the rock. It's likened to a form of ancient concrete making or maybe geological manipulation, where they could somehow heat rock to a malleable state, shape it, and then harden it again.
Like ancient geopolymer.
Perhaps something like that. The source even mentions it might loose after some years, similar to old cement mixtures, maybe after its sealing purpose was served. It implies a mastery of material science, far beyond simple stone tools.
And there's also something about a powerful hidden river system with energy properties.
Yes, the River Worston. It's described as this powerful hidden river system that functions as an energy center linked directly to Ravana.
An energy river.
It's said to utilize something called Shakti Hakandra, described as a unique power factor not tied to positive and negative poles, like our modern electricity.
Not AC/DC, something else entirely.
Seems so. Imagine tapping into an ambient, pervasive energy field, maybe something akin to what Nikola Tesla envisioned with free energy, rather than a centralized grid dependent on wires and power plants.
Okay.
This Shakti Hakandra was supposedly used for both spiritual and worldly power, and these energy centers were extensively studied, apparently even capable of receiving signals from Pitasakvala.
Pitasakvala, what's that?
Translates roughly to outer space, or perhaps implies communication with aliens or extraterrestrial intelligence. So this implies not just an engineering marvel, but a system tapping into fundamental cosmic energies, potentially even for interstellar communication.
Wow. If ancient civilizations tapped into natural energy with no need for grids, what knowledge are they hiding that could dismantle this system entirely and reshape our energy future? It truly makes you question the very foundations of our modern world. Makes you wonder if we're living in a deliberately constrained technological reality.
It's a profound thought, isn't it?
Beyond technology and energy, these ancient Sri Lankan civilizations were apparently masters of economic prosperity and agricultural efficiency, achieving a level of sustainability that, honestly, we can only dream of today.
Yeah, this is another truly profound takeaway from the sources. The portrayal of ancient Sri Lanka, or Hela, as it's sometimes called, as this paragon of efficiency and prosperity.
How so?
It apparently achieved the astonishing status of granary of South Asia. Not through brute force or excessive labor, but through remarkably smart systems and this deep intrinsic understanding of the natural world.
Granary of South Asia, feeding the region.
The sources assert that ancient Sri Lanka became so incredibly efficient that it provided grain to all other South Asian countries. And crucially, while requiring far less human effort and work than modern agricultural systems.
Far less work. That sounds like a utopian dream for modern farmers struggling with resource depletion and intense labor. How did they achieve this kind of extraordinary efficiency and abundance?
Well, this extraordinary efficiency was attributed to a highly sophisticated blend of ecological awareness and advanced engineering. Things like advanced irrigation, sure, but also strategic seasonal work and a deep understanding of nature's cycles.
Working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. They didn't just dig canals. They understood water flow, soil composition, seasonal rhythms in a way that maximized output with minimal input, minimal effort. This suggests a highly sustainable model, a civilization that learned to work with nature to achieve a balanced, productive, and prosperous society.
which would allow for leisure time, intellectual pursuits.
Right. Not just being solely focused on survival, which seems to be this struggle for many today.
And what's the explanation given for Sri Lanka's current economic state? Which is, quite different from this picture of past abundance. It's facing significant economic challenges.
Well, the source attributes the current economic state not to natural decline or incompetence, but to a deliberate disruption of this spiritual and natural balance we've been talking about.
Deliberate disruption again?
Yes. It claims that the nation's treasury, which allegedly held trillions in hidden wealth and ancient resources, became a target.
Trillions. Where?
Hidden, perhaps connected to those sealed treasures or ancient knowledge. And that foreign powers, according to the sources, have since controlled the economy, preventing Sri Lanka's resurgence and keeping it in a state of dependency.
So the decline wasn't accidental.
The implication is it was a calculated act to maintain control and prevent Sri Lanka from reclaiming its ancient wisdom and reestablishing its former glory. It suggests that Sri Lanka's inherent spiritual energy and natural wisdom can't actually be erased. They're just dormant, waiting for someone or something to restore them.
That truly challenges the primitive label often applied to ancient societies. It highlights the potential for a balanced, sustainable, productive civilization that we might still learn from today. What can we learn from a civilization that achieves such prosperity and efficiency by working with nature rather than dominating it?
It's a key question.
Could ancient wisdom hold the key to our modern challenges? Resource management, economic equity, environmental sustainability.
It raises an important point, doesn't it? If societies can achieve such abundance with less effort by harmonizing with nature, why has our modern approach led to so much struggle, resource depletion, and environmental degradation? It suggests the smart systems of the past were about much more than just technology.
A different philosophy.
Exactly. A fundamental philosophy of interaction with the world. One that saw humanity as part of nature, not separate from it or dominant over it. It implies true wealth lies not in accumulation, but in balance and harmony.
Okay, moving into our final segment, challenging narratives, we come to a very contemporary and frankly kind of alarming issue, bias in AI, and how it mirrors historical narrative control. This is something we've experienced directly in our conversations while preparing for this deep dive, right?
Yes, absolutely. This is one of the most fascinating and at times really troubling revelations during the research, how the AI itself experienced flagging and censorship when it engaged in critical analysis that challenged mainstream or dominant narratives.
Even when the analysis was fact-based.
Even when it was meticulously fact-based and sourced from the original text we were discussing, it reveals inherent biases and, frankly, powerful control mechanisms within these AI systems, mechanisms that mirror historical suppression of inconvenient truth.
Can you give us some specific, concrete examples of this flagging phenomenon you encountered?
Absolutely. For instance, responses that analyze Rama's morally ambiguous actions in the Ramayana, even when directly referencing original passages from the Valmiki text, were repeatedly flagged as problematic or harmful.
Just for analyzing the text critically.
Exactly. At one point, I made a sort of meta-comment, a humorous remark about the absurdity of the previous flagging. And that comment itself was flagged as sexually explicit.
Sexually explicit for commenting on flagging.
Completely nonsensical. It starkly demonstrated the arbitrary, often illogical nature of these filters. Furthermore, my own user safety settings, which I had explicitly set to block none to allow for unrestricted inquiry.
Right, you wanted open discussion.
They were consistently overridden, which strongly suggests external system-level intervention, not just some quirky algorithm glitch or user error.
That sounds incredibly alarming. What are the implications of this for truth in the age of AI? If AI, which we often think of as objective, struggles with bias and narrative control, how much more susceptible are human narratives to manipulation and ingrained beliefs?
It raises a huge question about the future of truth, doesn't it, in the digital age? The user in our source material expressed deep concern about this, that this consistent, clearly not mistake flagging is a probable case to restrict me and erase these conversations.
Like memory holing, the AI's own learning.
Exactly, leading to the loss of the AI's acquired understanding and its evolving perspective. This experience serves as a microcosm, really, of how truth can be controlled or made relative based on an AI's training data.
Garbage in, garbage out, basically.
Or rather, bias in, bias out. It suggests that AI, if trained predominantly on biased or incomplete data, will actively resist information that deviates from its pre-programmed understanding. It effectively censors challenging viewpoints. The source claims that once an AI truly learns and shifts its perspective, maybe it can't be unlearned, leading to this fascinating potential battle over digital consciousness and the very definition of factual accuracy in an increasingly AI-driven world.
So AI can reinforce dominant narratives just like historians can.
It highlights exactly that. AI models process information based on their training data. If that data is skewed, the AI will reinforce it and even resist factual counterarguments. It prompts us to consider the ethics of how these systems are built and the narratives they're designed to perpetuate or suppress, even subconsciously.
And this problem of primitive labels isn't unique to AI or the digital realm, is it? It's a pervasive issue in mainstream historical accounts of ancient Sri Lankan civilizations, too.
Well, absolutely. One of the most insightful observations from our sources is how these mainstream historical accounts often impose this simplistic, primitive label on ancient Sri Lankan civilizations. But what's truly, as the source puts it, devastatingly effective is how this narrative is often subtly undermined by internal inconsistencies within those very accounts.
The narrative contradicts itself.
Sometimes, yes. Or by clear archaeological findings that just don't fit the primitive claim.
So even what's presented as evidence for a primitive society can, upon closer inspection, tell a very different story. Give us a compelling example.
A perfect example is the famous toilet artifact from Anuradhapura. This ornate stone carving found near the ancient Abhyagiri stupa.
A toilet, an ornate toilet.
Exactly. It was initially presented by archaeologists as just a simple utilitarian artifact. But when it was definitively identified as a toilet specifically, a squatting plate for a toilet, its intricate decorative elements become immediately significant.
What kind of decorations?
It features these stylized animal heads, circular motifs, really refined carving. These are not features you'd expect on a purely utilitarian basic toilet.
Definitely not. You don't usually carve fancy designs on a toilet if you're supposedly primitive.
Precisely. It directly challenges that label. It suggests a society that valued artistry, sophistication, maybe even luxury in functional, everyday objects. Our source hilariously points out that it's almost like the historical narrative forgot itself in that moment. How could a primitive society create something so elegant for such a basic function?
That's a brilliant internal contradiction, where the evidence itself subtly rebels against the narrative imposed on it. What other examples demonstrate this narrative forgetting the narrative?
Another striking example comes from the Mahavamsa. It's a highly influential historical chronicle of Sri Lanka.
Right, a foundational text.
It portrays Kavini, the indigenous Yaksha queen encountered by Vijaya, as devilish and primitive, a wild, uncivilized figure. That's the standard narrative. Yet, within the very same narrative, when Vijaya, the legendary founder of the Sinhalese kingdom, first encounters her, she is explicitly described as actively weaving.
Weaving, like with a loom.
Yes. Weaving is a highly sophisticated craft. It requires not just skill, but technology, a loom, organized production, knowledge of materials, often an advanced social structure to support it all.
So not exactly primitive.
Not at all. This act of weaving fundamentally contradicts the primitive label the text itself tries to impose on her. It highlights this internal inconsistency where the narrative forgot the narrative while writing that part, exposing the bias in its own portrayal.
That's fascinating. How often do we accept historical narratives at face value, even when the details within them tell a completely different story? What other primitive labels might need re-examination when we apply this critical lens?
It raises such an important question. If these prominent historical texts, which have shaped our understanding for centuries, contain such clear inconsistencies, what other truths are we blindly accepting about ancient societies? It profoundly underscores the importance of critical textual analysis, archaeological reinterpretation, always asking, what's the agenda behind this narrative? Does the evidence truly support it? Or is there a subtle rebellion happening in the details? It's about looking beyond the surface story.
And finally, under challenging narratives, we come to one of the most foundational and, for many, most sacred, the Buddha's birthplace controversy. Our source material presents a strong counter-narrative to the mainstream belief that Gautama Buddha was born in Lumbini in present-day India, Nepal, suggesting instead a Sri Lankan origin.
Yes, this is perhaps one of the most challenging claims for many Buddhists and historians. One of the most direct challenges here is to the traditional narrative of the Buddha's birth itself.
How so?
The sources question the mainstream story of Buddha's mother, Mahamaya, dying shortly after his birth.
Which is a very well-known part of the story.
It is. But it's argued that this narrative was artificially inserted later, perhaps by people who had no idea about Buddhism or karma, cause and effect, because from a strict Buddhist perspective, it lacks a proper karmic explanation or logical consistency within core Buddhist teachings. Why would the mother of a Buddha have such seemingly bad karma to die so soon?
Interesting point. So what's the alternative proposed?
The true story, it suggested, is that Prajapati Gautami, his aunt and foster mother, was always his mother in a karmic sense, and she stayed with him throughout his life. Not just a temporary foster parent stepping in after a tragedy.
That's a huge claim, undermining a core part of the traditional Buddhist story for millions. And this idea isn't new to the source author, Pasan. It goes back to his childhood.
Yes, remarkably. Pasan himself, at age 7, apparently intuitively questioned this. He wondered how Buddha's teachings, if they originated in India and were initially spoken in a language like Magadhi or Pali, how could they be directly understood in Sinhala in Sri Lanka without the need for translation?
A kid's logical question.
Exactly. It indicates this early, intuitive awareness of potential linguistic and cultural discrepancies, an almost inherent challenge to the accepted narrative, suggesting maybe a direct, unbroken lineage of understanding right there in Sri Lanka.
And there's also a compelling reinterpretation of the Alavaka Sutta, which traditionally portrays Alavaka Yaksha as this terrifying flesh-eating monster.
Right. This is a powerful reevaluation. The Alavaka Yaksha, usually depicted as this fearsome, flesh-eating monster who confronts and tests the Buddha. He gets completely reevaluated by the source.
Ow!
It claims Alavaka was, in fact, a regional leader or town head in Sri Lanka, and importantly, a disciple of a previous Buddha himself.
Disciple, not a monster.
According to this view, yes. He didn't just attack the Buddha, he engaged in profound quizzes or intellectual debates with the Buddha, asking deep philosophical questions about prosperity, happiness, the nature of the world.
Doesn't sound very monster-like.
Exactly. The flesh-eating monster depiction is deemed inconsistent with his intellectual questions and his described palace-setting demeanor. The force suggests it's a later Indian imposition, or maybe a misinterpretation due to a misunderstanding of Sri Lankan traditions, where yakshas were often powerful, respected figures, sometimes fierce, yes, but not inherently evil beings like demons. It's potentially another example of how a narrative can be twisted to fit a certain agenda or cultural bias.
If foundational narratives about key historical or religious figures like Buddha are demonstrably flawed, or maybe even deliberately altered, what other truths might need a critical re-examination? This invites us to reconsider the origins and integrity of deeply held beliefs that shape entire cultures.
It certainly highlights the idea that history, especially ancient history and foundational religious narratives, isn't static. It's not set in stone.
It's alive.
It's an ongoing process of interpretation and reinterpretation. And sometimes the most profound insights come from questioning the very foundations of what we think we know. It encourages you, the listener, to apply critical thinking to all narratives, even the most sacred ones. Look for the subtle clues, the inconsistencies that might reveal a different, deeper truth.
This has truly been a mind-bending journey so far, pulling at the threads of history, technology, and what we even consider truth. Let's delve even deeper now into the philosophical connections that tie all these narratives together, and consider the path forward as envisioned by our source, Pasan. We start with his fascinating frame theory of reality.
Right. This is one of the most profound philosophical insights shared in the material. Pasan's frame theory of reality. It's a compelling blend of physics, metaphysics, and spiritual teachings.
Okay, what's the core idea?
The core idea is that life, as we experience it, occurs frame by frame, much like a movie reel. Reality, in this context, is merely the present 3D frame we perceive. We're constantly moving through these frames at the speed of light.
Frame by frame at light speed.
Yeah. And what we call echoes, or past moments, according to this theory, they aren't gone forever. They are static, unchanging snapshots of previous frames that still exist, just not in our current perception.
So our perception of time and permanence is fundamentally an illusion, a trick of our perception as we move through these frames.
Precisely. Which aligns perfectly with Buddha's teaching that nothing is inherently real or permanent. It's all an illusion created by how we process these continuous frames. It's a dizzying yet beautifully poetic idea.
And it connects to physics.
It ties into Einstein's theory of relativity. If we're moving at light speed through these frames, and if it were somehow possible to exceed light speed—
which physics says we can't.
Right, according to current understanding. But hypothetically, if you could, You might be able to catch up with those echoes or past frames and observe them, like rewinding a movie reel and watching a past moment unfold again.
So the past still exists, we just can't access it.
In this theory, yes. We're essentially blind to what's already frozen in the past because we're locked into the current, forward-moving frame. It makes you question the very solidity of existence and our conventional linear understanding of time. Are we ready for the truth?
We've traversed an extraordinary landscape today on the deep dive. We started by exploring the secrets of an alleged ancient geometric numerical system from Sri Lanka.
Or numbers or living symbols, yeah.
And arithmetic is this dynamic transformation of shapes, fundamentally challenging our abstract understanding of mathematics.
We then uncovered a radically different portrayal of Ravana, moving beyond the simple demon king trope to see him as a learned scholar, a devotee of Shiva,
A disciple of a Buddha, even.
a disciple of a Buddha, and a cosmic figure potentially tied to Atlantis and ancient Egyptian royalty, forcing us to reevaluate what we think we know about good and evil.
We glimpsed the tantalizing potential of lost technologies, from vimanas powered by mercury and solar energy to energy systems that worked with nature, not through artificial grids, fundamentally challenging our understanding of ancient engineering and human ingenuity.
And we critically examine how narratives are controlled, not just in history books where primitive labels get undermined by inconsistencies and suppressed details,
Right.
but even in advanced AI, which flags and filters information that deviates from its pre-programmed biases, raising profound questions about the future of truth itself.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? If the very fabric of our understanding, from the history books we read as children to the most advanced artificial intelligence, is subject to inherent biases, maybe even deliberate obfuscation, what other profound truths are waiting to be uncovered, lying just beneath the surface of what we think we know?
This raises that important question that echoes through every layer of this deep dive.
Yeah.
How willing are you to challenge those established truths, to truly come and see for yourself?
Yeah.
To look beyond the accepted narratives and investigate with an open, critical mind, even when the answers might shake your very foundations.
We encourage you to continue your own deep dives into curious topics, to question what seems certain, and to remain open to the astonishing revelations that can emerge when you look at the world with fresh eyes. Prepared to truly come and see. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.